Hey everybody, it's T. I was in one of my groups that I'm on Facebook, and somebody was saying they didn't even know how to make an envelope, and it is so easy. I thought I would share another one. I know I have a video on doing a padded envelope, but this one is just for anything. I have to mail out this painting to Gina, who won it on my drawing yesterday on the blog, and I don't want to run out and purchase an envelope for that because I just don't do that anymore. So I'm going to make one today for this. And you can use, if you're making your own, scrapbooking paper. You can use scrap paper that you have. You can use watercolor paper. Whatever you have will work. This is cardstock weight scrapbooking paper, and I make envelopes out of this all the time. Today, however, since I'm sending a painting, I'm using rosin paper. Rosin paper is available at the hardware store or home improvement center, and it comes in a big giant roll for like $11, $12, $13, and I paint on it and use it for all kinds of things. It's slightly waterproof. They sell it in the painting department. I think they put it down as drop cloths and tape it up to protect things, but it's as thick as some of the interesting drawing paper, and I like drawing and stuff with it too, so I make journals and stuff. So because it's huge, you've got to cut it down to size. Now, how do you know what size you need? First thing you're going to do, this is my piece I'm going to make my envelope out of today, is you're going to measure your piece that you're making a custom envelope for. Custom envelopes, if they are square, they require extra postage, so you want to stick in that 4x6 type format. Luckily, this piece, this painting, is 4.5 by 6, so we want to make our piece of paper have the 4x6 in it, but have enough to have our flaps and things. So here's how my rule of thumb. Doing it so that my envelope is, here, I'll just pull this one out and show you. This is another finished one I did that fits this. And doing it so that the long part is vertical, I need to add about 2 inches for a flap and about 1 inch for a flap here. So it's 3 inches to the long side. And on the short side, I need the full length of this twice, plus about 1 inch. Okay, because this is going to wrap over and over on this piece. So think of it like wrapping a package. So then, once you've got your piece cut, and you might have to do it on the floor if you're using the rosin paper because it's so big, I painted mine. You can do painting, stamping, drawing, whatever you want. Don't send out ugly mail, send out pretty mail. So I painted this and I dried it. So now we need to score it. And where do you know to score it? Well, we know that we want this piece in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfect, but, you know, I tend to futz with it until it's right about where I want it to be. And I know that I want my envelope slightly, I'm doing the wrong way here. It's this way. This one, for the vertical, the long end of it, I want about 1 inch at the bottom. So I'm going to put this so that the piece is 1/4 of an inch, or 1/8 of an inch rather, one slot on the Martha Stewart scoreboard. If you have a different scoreboard or a different way of doing it, just add 1/8 of an inch at the bottom. Mark it and score it. So I'm going to score across that at 8 inches on my piece. Again, in a custom one, you're going to put it where you need it to be. And then I'm going to do about 1/8 of an inch here, and I'm doing this one at 1 3/4 for the top flap. Okay, so that's the vertical end. Now the wide piece is what's going to wrap around this way, and I'm going to turn it so it's easier for you to see. I won't score it in this direction, and I'll tell you why in a second. So I've got my marks on where I'm doing my folds. And again, I want this in about the center, and this is about 4.5 inches. So I'm going to put it in, and I'm going to score this at 3 1/8 and at 7 7/8. Well, it doesn't matter. You can score it either direction. If you score on the back of your paper so that the bump moves away, you're not going to get as clean or as nice a fold as if you scored on the front side of your paper, but it doesn't matter. Now I have my score lines with my centerpiece, and I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to trim, and I'm not going to cut directly on the score line. I'm going to come in a bit and cut down at an angle towards that intersection. And I'm going to do the same thing on this side. That's my top piece because it's longer. Okay, and here, cutting at an angle towards the intersection and inside this piece. Now the reason that I'm cutting at an angle is I give myself a little ease room for these pieces to fit together. The flaps, if it was just straight cuts, sometimes it would have a uneven fit and you wouldn't like it as much. It wouldn't be as smooth. So if you take an envelope, store-bought envelope apart, you're going to see that they do this as well. And yes, that's probably where I got the idea. Okay. The angle that you cut this does not matter. Sometimes I do it curvy. And so I'm not measuring and marking these. If you are a person who has to do that, go for it. You can measure and mark. It's not going to hurt a thing. But I don't need to do that, so I'm good. Okay. So now, when I fold this in, one side is longer than the other, and that's okay. Because one side needs to go over the other. Sometimes I will trim it so that there is not so much of an overlap, but because I'm doing a painting in here and I don't want it to get bent, extra paper is fine. I'm going to stick extra in the envelope anyway, and just go through and do all of these. Now, the flap is the only piece where it's going to show. So if you want to round those, you can do it with a punch, or you can just take your scissors and round that corner a bit. Again, that is completely optional. It is absolutely not necessary on your custom envelopes. Okay, so now you can use adhesive with an ATG gun. You can use any adhesive that you have. The thing that you're going to want to do is put the bottom flap up, and we're going to want to put adhesive on this flap and put it down. But we don't want it to go above where the bottom flap is. So I'm going to mark it with a pencil so that I know not to put any glue above that, because I don't want to glue my piece shut. So the adhesive that I'm going to use is the Scotch tacky glue. It's quick drying. The stuff dries in under a minute, and I like that. There's others available that are wonderful, but I like this one. And the other benefit of this one is I don't have to sit and hold it for very long, but it makes a very strong permanent bond. So that's my key on these, is I want a very strong permanent bond. I don't want it to come apart in the mail. Now, this one, again, I'm going to mark the inside of the flap for where it's at, and I don't have to put adhesive all the way over to where this is. But we do want to mark, this is going to be, I'm just going to eyeball this one, about right there. So here I do want adhesive along, at least along this edge of this, but I tend to do a little more. And in this way, just to be sure that we don't get any down in here, I'm going to pull that off. It's not going to, because it's going to cover that. And we put it down. It doesn't take much adhesive. And the heat of your hand rubbing across that is what dries it. And then now I have an envelope that I can put something in, and it's ready to mail. The flap will fold down, and I'll use the same adhesive to close it. Now, the front of my envelope is really pretty. Do I want to put a sticker on that, a label to mail it? No, I don't. I don't want to mess that up. So they could cut this piece out, keep it, and use it for something else. I will put labels and information on the back. Now, if you don't want to use a label, it's really super easy. Take some gesso or white acrylic. You can put it in a tray. I like to thin it with a little water, and just take a brush and brush on an address spot. And I'm doing it on the back again because I want that piece in the front to be usable for the recipient whenever they get it. And then you need a return address spot. So I'm going to do it up here on this side. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to go all the way to the edges, doesn't even have to be solid white. I like it translucent so they can see the stuff through it, but when I write on that with black, it's going to be very visible. If yours is too thin or you want it to be more white, add more white paint to it and go over it again, or just don't thin it in the first place. So I'm going to leave that off to the side, and I'll show you this one, which I finished earlier. I'm going to put a piece of chipboard inside, and then I've also got some samples of the rosin paper for Gina. But I'll put chipboard in so that my painting doesn't get damaged. This is exactly the same size as the other one. And I've got plenty of room for that painting to go down inside and close it up and ship it to her. Cool, right? All right, T, now what about standard sizes? Because I said I don't go out and get them. This is another little 4x6. You can have a long flap. You can adjust this piece and attach it like this. Seal the bottom, attach this one at an angle so that you've got, like, it's gusseted and it's open a lot wider at the top, and attach these to the wall and use them for pockets to tuck in your receipts and things when you get home, so that, you know, like I'll punch a hole and I'll hang this on my pegboard, but it's a great place for me to just throw a receipt so that I don't have to immediately go and scan it and put it in the system for taxes. So another good thing for the envelopes. But 6x8 is a standard size that I buy all the time. So making a 6x8 envelope is really easy. You don't need to buy them. What we're going to do first is we're going to cut our 12x12 piece of, and I'll go ahead and make one. We're going to cut our 12x12 piece of paper down, and I'm cutting it down to 12 by 10.5. And let's see if this piece is big enough. It already had a piece cut out of it. Oh, it's already 10.5. That's perfect. Okay, so it's 12 by 10.5. So it doesn't have to be cut. So now we've got our piece of paper. And on our short side, this one, we're going to score it. This is for a standard 6x8. And granted, or, you know, obviously, like we talked about earlier, you don't want it to be exactly 6x8. You want a 6x8 piece to go in it, so it's going to be more like 6 1/4 by 8 1/4. So we're going to score this rather at, I've got them written down. Haha, smart this time. 3/4 and 9 inches on the short side. So 3/4 of an inch is right here, and that gives me my extra space inside for the objects. And then 9 inches, is that right? 9 or 10, yeah, I'm going to do there. There we go. And you'll notice this flap isn't as big as the other, and that's fine, it doesn't matter. Then we're going to rotate it, and we're going to score it 2 7/8 and 9 1/8. 2 7/8 and 9 1/8. Scoreboards make your life easy. And we're going to trim, and then what's going to happen after you trim this, I'm going to go back to my pink one now, after you trim it and you fold it, is that your pieces aren't going to meet because you only had 12 inches to start with. Well, this piece that you cut off, the 1.5 inch piece you cut off, you're going to trim that down, and we're going to use it to seal the 2 edges and bring it back together, all in the same 12 by 12 piece of paper. So that's my bottom flap down here. So let's go ahead and get our adhesive out again. Where to put it? Here we go. And I'm just going to squiggle it on the bottom. This one's just a rough one, so I'm not going to be perfect with it. If some of the glue shows at the bottom, I'm not going to care about it. Okay, and then now I'm going to use the contrasting side so you can see it. And I'm going to go across the bottom, right at the edge on both sides. And I'm going to start up here at the top and put it on and glue it down. And then now you've got a 6x8, goes through all the mail slots. I have no problems with these. They don't come back to me. And if your angles are not perfect, like mine aren't here, just trim that out. There. 6x8 envelope, flap to seal it, ready to go in the mail, or you can decorate and go further with it. Easy squeezy. You guys should be making your own envelopes and sending out your art in pretty mail. Talk to you later. Bye.